Throughout history, every path of light has cast a shadow. In the realms of mysticism and occult philosophy, that shadow takes many names, yet none so haunting or enigmatic as the Black Brotherhood. Often spoken of in whispers among adepts, these are said to be those who walk the path of initiation only to turn away at its highest threshold. Beings who sought not unity with the divine, but dominion over it. They are the self-crowned kings of illusion, the masters of shadow, the sorcerers of the left-hand path. The origins of the idea of the Black Brotherhood can be traced back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, an age when Western occultism was being reshaped by figures like Helena Blavatsky, Aleister Crowley, and later Dion Fortune. In Theosophy, Blavatsky described two spiritual orders at eternal odds. The Great White Brotherhood, representing enlightened adepts who serve the evolution of humanity, and the Black Brotherhood, their dark mirror, beings who reject compassion, unity, and divine will in favor of selfish ascension. While Blavatsky's description was moral and cosmic, Aleister Crowley gave the concept a deeper, psychological dimension. In his Book of the Law and later writings, Crowley described the Black Brothers as failed magicians, those who reached the abyss, the threshold between the human ego and divine consciousness, but refused to surrender their individuality. Where the true adept dissolves the self into the infinite, the Black Brother clings desperately to the illusion of separateness. In doing so, they fall, not into mere evil, but into spiritual entropy. According to Crowley, the abyss is the great test of initiation. To cross it is to confront Choronzon, the demon of dispersion, who tears apart all illusions of ego. The adept who survives does so by surrendering the self, but the one who resists becomes trapped, a Black Brother, who fortifies the walls of the self against the infinite, building their own dark universe of will and illusion. To understand the Black Brotherhood is to understand the paradox of spiritual darkness. They are not merely evil in the moral sense. They are anti-cosmic, anti-harmonious, and anti-evolutionary. They represent a form of spiritual rebellion, not against morality, but against unity itself. Where most mystics seek to dissolve the self into the greater whole, the Black Brother seeks to preserve and empower the self eternally. In esoteric philosophy, this represents the principle of involution, the turning inward of energy that should naturally flow toward transcendence. The Black Brothers are thus described as lords of form, bound to the material and mental planes. They master the lower forces of nature, but lose access to the higher ones. They wield knowledge and power, but their power decays, for it is cut off from the source. Crowley described them as those who have shut themselves up, whose egos have become sealed tombs. They live, in his words, by the formula of death, feeding upon their own decaying vitality. In symbolic terms, the Black Brotherhood represents the final and most dangerous temptation of the adept, the choice to become God rather than unite with God. Descriptions of the Black Brotherhood's rituals vary across occult traditions, but certain themes persist: secrecy, inversion, and the invocation of dark intelligences. These are not mere acts of depravity, but highly structured rites aimed at reversing the natural current of spiritual evolution. One core practice is the invocation of the shadow self, the deliberate summoning of one's inner darkness, fears, and forbidden desires. The adept confronts their inner abyss, not to transcend it, but to absorb and weaponize it. Such rituals are often performed at night, before black mirrors or in complete darkness, where sensory deprivation amplifies inner visions. Another symbolic act involves the reversal of sacred symbols, reciting prayers backward, inverting pentagrams, or walking counterclockwise around ritual circles. These gestures represent the rejection of cosmic order, the turning of consciousness away from the divine towards self-deification. While physical sacrifice is rare and largely allegorical, many texts describe the use of symbolic blood rituals. Blood, the essence of life, becomes a means of binding will to form. In some traditions, black candles, obsidian blades, or serpent imagery are used to signify mastery over the lower forces of existence. In alchemical symbolism, the great work, magnum opus, represents the transformation of base matter into spiritual gold. For the Black Brother, the process is reversed. Instead of ascending from matter to spirit, they descend from spirit into matter, seeking to crystallize power within the self. The result is not enlightenment, but entrapment, the creation of what Crowley called a black pyramid of isolation. Unlike the adepts of light, who seek to dissolve duality, the Black Brotherhood seeks to control it. Their goal is the mastery of matter, to dominate the forces of nature and consciousness without surrendering the ego. They pursue what some occult texts call anti-cosmic enlightenment, the knowledge that existence itself is an illusion, and that true power lies in bending that illusion to one's will. This idea finds echoes in Gnostic and Luciferian philosophy. In some Gnostic sects, the material universe is seen as a prison created by a false god, the demiurge, and liberation comes through secret knowledge, gnosis. The Black Brotherhood takes this concept to an extreme. They seek not to escape the prison, but to rule it. Their enlightenment is thus inverted. Instead of dissolving the self into divine unity, they affirm the self as God, even if it means opposing the cosmos itself. In this sense, they resemble the mythic figure of Lucifer, the light-bringer who defied heaven not out of evil, but out of the will to self-knowledge. The tragedy of the Black Brotherhood is not that they are monsters, but that they are stalled. They have reached a point of immense power, but cannot move beyond it. Their universe becomes smaller and smaller, a hall of mirrors reflecting only their own will. Crowley described this state as a kind of spiritual crystallization. Their consciousness becomes fixed. They cannot expand. In mystical terms, they have chosen eternity, but an eternity of form, not spirit. Eventually, their energy decays, and they disintegrate into the chaos they sought to control. The process may take centuries or even eons, depending on the plane of existence. The Kabbalistic tradition describes a similar idea in the Qliphoth, the shells or husks that remain when divine energy departs from form. The Qliphothic realms are said to be ruled by dark archons and corrupted intelligences, remnants of failed creations. The Black Brotherhood, in this sense, are the living Qliphoth, vessels of divine power turned inward upon themselves. In modern occult circles, the term Black Brotherhood is sometimes used metaphorically to describe those who misuse spiritual power or turn the teachings of initiation toward egoic ends. Groups inspired by left-hand path traditions, such as certain Luciferian or Setian orders, reinterpret the symbolism not as evil, but as a path of self-deification and conscious rebellion against imposed order. The Temple of Set, for instance, founded by Michael A. Aquino in 1975, redefined the concept of darkness as a positive force, the principle of individual self-consciousness, Zephyr. While not aligned with Crowley's Black Brothers, it echoes their central idea, the sovereignty of the self. However, in the traditional esoteric sense, the Black Brotherhood remains a warning. They are the spiritual aristocracy that refused the crown of light, the magicians who sought to own eternity rather than be absorbed by it. In the end, the myth of the Black Brotherhood is not merely about evil, it is about balance. Every seeker of light must confront their shadow, and every ascent must pass through the abyss. The Black Brothers are what happens when the seeker cannot let go, when knowledge becomes pride, and will becomes tyranny. Their existence serves as both a caution and a mystery. For as long as there are beings who seek power without wisdom, there will be Black Brothers. But they also remind us that even darkness has purpose, for without the shadow, light would have no contrast. In the vast hierarchy of the unseen, they are not merely villains. They are the necessary mirror of the great work. They stand at the threshold of the infinite, showing every soul what it must surrender to truly transcend. And perhaps, beyond even their darkness, there lies another dawn, when the last Black Brother finally lets go of the illusion of self and returns, at last, to the eternal light he once defied.